From Oakland, California. It's great to be here with all of you. I appreciate everyone for being here, coming out on this morning. Good morning. I also want to say that I was in JICA when I was in high school, and then I went back as a young adult and was a director for a little bit before I leapt into a life of being an artist full time. I have a short story I want to share with you all, and then a short poem. The story is about my family history. My great-great-grandfather, Hyman Kavelovich, immigrated to the United States when he was 19 years old. And I knew nothing really about his life until a couple years ago, and I started researching, like, why did he come here? Where did he come from? What was going on? And I found this story about a city called Kiev. Kiev is currently the capital of Ukraine. It's been in the news lately because they've been having a lot of political rebellion. But back then it was a part of the empire of Russia. Now, Russia was very, very anti-Semitic. There was a lot of hatred against Jews. And for many, many years, Jews were not allowed to live in the city of Kiev at all. They were completely excluded. Even though Kiev was the center of economy, was the center of industry, a lot of things were happening. This is the mid to early 1800s. When they finally realized that they should open up the city of Kiev to Jews, they only allowed a small number of Jews. They created a quota system for how many Jews were allowed to live in the city. And they created a system of residency papers that they issued to Jews, that Jews were required to carry with them at all times to prove that they were legal residents. Now this might start sounding familiar. So some Jews had their legal residency papers that they had to carry with them all the time. But like I said, Kiev was the center of the economy. There were a lot of jobs, there was a lot of education opportunities, healthcare, all kinds of things that Jewish people all over Russia at that time really needed. So other Jews started migrating into Kiev, even though it was impossible to get these legal residency papers. In the early 1880s, this is 125 years ago, the authorities of Kiev decided they needed to do something about this rising Jewish population in the city of Kiev. Those Jews spoke that Yiddish language, and they were so loud, and they were so, unfaithful to their Christian God. They were so dirty, they were so different. They were taking over the city, the holy city of Kiev. And so they put pressure on the Russian police. And the Russian police started doing these raids of the Jewish neighborhoods in the middle of the night or at dawn. They would break into families' homes and demand to see their residency papers. Now this might start sounding really familiar. And if Jews were not able to produce these residency papers, they were arrested, they were thrown into jail, and then they were deported from Kiev. This is what was happening to Jews 125 years ago in Russia. And this is why my great-great-grandfather left Russia and immigrated to the United States. In an ironic twist of history, he settled in Arizona, where today ICE agents break into families' homes at midnight and at dawn, breaking up families and demanding to see their residency papers. And if they don't have residency papers, they're locked up, they're criminalized, they're deported. This cycle of violence has been happening for a long time. And I think that we as a Jewish community know that it's happened to us and that it shouldn't happen to anybody. And I think for me, that's why I'm here with my family, to speak out about the injustices that are happening, to say that we need to stop the criminalization of migration. We need to stop the prison industrial complex. We need to stop the private industry of prisons and all of the people who are making money off of this system, of tearing families apart, of destroying people's communities and raining terror and fear and violence all across the land. So I'm working on a new play now. I'm an actor and a playwright called Amnesia. and it's been commissioned by La Peña Cultural Center in Berkeley, California. It will premiere at La Peña in May, and I invite you all to come check it out. It tells this story of my family history and the raids of Kiev and ICE raids today. So I want to share just a short poem from Amnesia. And I wrote this section really in response to Fox News. And listening to some of the things that white people in Arizona were saying during the whole SB 1070 phenomenon that was happening. So this is in response to that. This is a section of Amnesia that will be at La Peña in May. Ignorant descendants of white immigrants, defendants of a nation that's been illin' since it stole the land indigenous. White militants been killing since the ships that brought the pilgrims in. Pillaging villages, spilling the blood of millions, civilians, imperialism, terror, villainous. And today they're still on this. New World Order's name of vigilance. The Minutemen's assembling on borders, building fences in resemblance of henchmen with their tools of violence venomous. The willingness to murder people just because they're not citizens. The incidents of racism are infamous. A synthesis of ill intent and ignorance. It's really no coincidence. It represents the visions of our Congress's belligerents. Decisions so offensive, all the evidence against it, with ridiculous incentives for the businesses of war. Now the president's defensiveness is vengeance on the poor. Politicians in positions in the system just for dividends. Their distance is tremendous from the people in the trenches, and the conflicts of their interests are a senseless diss to the intelligence of residents who live the consequence. The images of immigrants as indigents, ubiquitous. Aggressive and relentless is the media's ambitiousness. You with us or against us is rhetorical maliciousness. The suspiciousness with which this is enforced upon its victims is horrendous legal lynchings led by vicious white supremacists. Who pays the price? Who benefits? When freedom's so expensive it's beyond the loss of innocence. The cost to those who live in this imprisonment infringes on intrinsic human senses. The significance of difference between police oppressiveness and living people's preciousness is evidence. The question is, how can we change the prevalence of ICE and the Border Patrol's recklessness? Thank you very much.